All right, everyone joining us this morning, the latest winner in the NASCAR Cup Series, driver of the number 2 Discount Tire. Sometimes it's Freightliner, sometimes it's Menard, but it's the Team Penske driver of the number 2 Team Penske Ford Mustang Dark Horse in the Cup Series, Austin Cindric, joining us this morning. Austin, congratulations on the big win Sunday. I know you guys getting ready to celebrate maybe a little bit today. Just kind of what's it been like the last couple of days to enjoy this win?
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, short turnaround. Probably shorter than most weeks with Sonoma cars having to leave this morning. So my guys, obviously didn't really have much time to turn around, and we had to do the whole car yesterday. So we got all the families of all the guys on my team together, pit crew, road crew, and went out and had dinner last night, and went and did the wind donuts that I traditionally would do at Roush H. It's just been a while. Went to the engine shop this morning. We'll have our happy hour as a team during lunch today. So yeah, all great things. There's definitely still a pulse on it. It's a pretty big moment for us, and a lot of momentum for the team.
Awesome. Well, we got a good group here on the call here today. So if you've got a question for Austin, raise your hand or send it to me through the chat, and we'll ask as many questions as we can with the time we have with Austin. So let's kick it off here with Greg Engel. Go ahead, Greg. You're on the poll. Kick us off.
Good morning, sir, and good
Morning.
morning, sir. Congratulations on the win. Really cool. Really popular win. Brian Wilson seemed to indicate Sunday night, and Brian Wilson, no relation to the Beach Boys, was talking about how the crew chiefs get together during the week and kind of plan and strategize the upcoming race. And Sunday, you guys stayed out when everybody else pitted, and it put you guys, in the top three. Did you know about that strategy coming into this, or do you just kind of do whatever he says?
At the end of the day, I do whatever he says. I mean, I feel like we have a good enough relationship that if I have input, I'll give it. But otherwise, he's the one that's dealing with all the information as far as seeing it all in real time as it's happening. And I feel like a turning point in that race was some of those cars staying out on those really old tires, being able to still make somewhat competitive lap time, or at least make it hard for guys with four tires to go by. And I really feel like that, somewhat diverted some of our strategy to maybe something more aggressive, as to what we did. Obviously, we only stopped a handful of times in the race. So, and we had good enough cars to do so either. I didn't have a whole lot of fall off or a whole lot of balance migration throughout the run. So, car was super predictable, and just opens up a lot of windows. And I felt like we had a top three car, and I felt like our strategy was top tier as well.
You get into this routine, speaking of meetings, and you come in every week and, okay, let's analyze the last race. What's the feeling like coming into these meetings for this week as the latest winner?
It's no different. I feel like this week's unique because Sonoma's got to repave, and there's a lot of unknowns with that. So it's how do you gather as much information, as much data? How relevant is the information, the data that you have on Sonoma towards what you're doing, and then how do you utilize the 50-minute practice session in an efficient way? So very much, you know, and when it comes to the process in the relation to winning the race, I think it makes our gateway debrief somewhat shorter than maybe a more difficult race, as far as like, hey, what do I want for next time? We had a super competitive car, and kind of just looking for small knobs to make that even better, and kind of go over why things went well, versus last year, previous events, other cars in the field. Definitely make good notes, because you want to be able to come back there and do that all again as a team. But as far as the process itself, winning and running that well, it's a validation of the process that we've put together as a team. If we're able to put a fast car on the racetrack, make the right decisions in the race car, that is enough for us to be at the top level on a good day.
Well, here's hoping that you have many more short meetings this season, my friend.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Enjoy it. Have fun this weekend at Sonoma.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Let's go to John Newby. Hello, John.
Hello, thank you. Austin, I was kind of curious about with looking at you and SVG guys like that. Why is it that you're so able to, I mean, naturally achieve success on road courses? I know obviously the background plays a role in where you came from, but is there, other factors? Like, do you see the route better than other drivers?
It's hard to say, and I feel like track to track, it certainly changes. I feel like Sonoma and Watkins Glen are probably two of the hardest road course races to go into as a new guy, right? I mean, there's so many laps, so much experience from, kind of just the traditional Cup Series field of drivers. But otherwise, man, I think the game's honestly changed in the last 5 or 6 years when it comes to road course racing. There's been, a lot more races on the schedule and a lot more guys have put much more of an emphasis on their preparation and how to go about that the right way to be prepared to compete at a high level of those races. Obviously you get a street course and a guy like SVG comes in who's an absolute stud, and it's no surprise that he ran extremely well and had a shot to win the race. So I think as far as it relates to me, in the Cup Series, I would say honestly 2021 with the older car was probably a little bit better for me on the road courses than the next gen car. I feel like we've had some good races, but we haven't had great races. And, I feel like in some ways that's somewhat of the expectation, but I feel like you can never underestimate your competition. There's some pretty talented guys in the field, and it's definitely hard to separate yourself.
Gotcha. And then just one quick follow up. I know that the Xfinity program Penske's been kind of dormant the last couple of years. As a driver, is that something you would ever want to see come back, especially with NASCAR adding, more unique tracks to the schedule, like putting Sonoma back on the Xfinity thing for the first time?
I think from a team standpoint, we have certainly found different ways to continue to add depth to the race team. That's what the Xfinity program really is for. Whether if it's developing drivers, developing crew members, developing pit crew athletes, that's what those programs are really good for. But obviously from my perspective, driving on the racetrack, it's 50-50 for me. I feel like some guys might feel differently. But for me, when I did double duty races in 2021, it was really difficult. Just because, and even then with the cars being as similar as they were, whereas right now they're not very similar at all. I mean, you listen to Chase Elliott talk about how different that Xfinity car felt for him, after years of not running that style of car. I feel like it's very much the case. And in 2021, when I did double duty races, like, I don't know, I put everything into my racing and my preparation, and like I was exhausted on some of those weekends just because like I want to get 100% out of it, and I don't want to leave anything on the table. And with as many different people and as much as at least for my process, it was certainly a lot. So I definitely wouldn't want it to be a distraction, but I also wouldn't want to not maximize an opportunity in a really good car. So yeah, I would say I'm probably 50-50 on that. I would say I'm probably on the lower end of guys that would want more track time, but otherwise, it's kind of whatever you're prioritizing really at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the insight.
Thank you.
Okay, John, let's move on to Stuart Weber. Good morning, Stuart.
And good morning. Hey, Austin, I'm here in Northeast Florida, and we often think back to your win at Daytona in 2022 and just the big celebration, Air Force Thunderbirds, all that kind of stuff that came along with it. For you, over these last 2 years, how often have you kind of thought back to that day and being able to finally get back to one of those kind of celebrations again this weekend? How meaningful was that?
Yeah, definitely meaningful. Obviously, a very very different type of celebration. Not necessarily. I mean, get the races out of the picture. Just kind of the timing of, in my career, obviously, very early on in the Cup Series. I think both wins, I wouldn't say came at a surprise, but I definitely wasn't the favorite going into the race by any means for either of them. But I think what makes this past weekend special is just in a lot of ways, I feel like with the group of guys that I'm with and the team that I'm with, it's kind of a different experience in general. Like one of the coolest things about winning the Daytona 500 was a lot of my guys on the team on the 2 car at that time, had been trying to win that race for decades, and to be able to deliver that to those guys and to see that kind of joy. And then on the flip side, this weekend, there's a lot of guys on my car that was their first ever Cup Series win. And to be able to deliver that, and I know I'm referencing in relation to like how other people are experiencing it, but it is what makes this special for me. Like I said it after Daytona, and I'll say it again. Like I know what winning means for me. I know the excitement, the relief, the satisfaction that comes with that. for me, Austin Cindric, but to kind of see what it means for other people that obviously, I get to see often, but never get to see that excited often is pretty special for me.
I guess it really kind of speaks to just how hard it is to win in NASCAR, to kind of go that long stretch. It probably makes you appreciate them even more, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's definitely worth soaking up every moment.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
Let's move to Kelly Crandall. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, Dan. Austin, two things for you. You had said Sunday night in your winner's press conference about how excited you were to see everybody at the shop and just the support that you've gotten from everyone at Penske over the last 2 years with how rocky things have been. Can you share more about that, what that's meant to you, what that's felt like, or what stands out about maybe things people have said, or just how you have felt that support through these last few seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly spend a lot of time at the race shop. So, shop-based guys are pretty used to seeing me, whether if it's just walking, through the facility, going to the gym every day, or obviously being around the car and being around the team. It's definitely a community of people that put a lot of work in, and obviously don't get to see the other side at the racetrack. But it's just appreciated. Like I don't expect anyone to be excited or happy about a poor performance or anything like that, and I don't think anyone is. But the support that I've received from the team from top to the bottom throughout this stretch of 85 races, if you want to call it, has been unwavering. And I've always been a person that says, other people's opinions don't matter, but the people that are putting in the hard work and that are part of my team, those are the only opinions to me that matter. And to have that support, even through the tough times, it shows the type of character of the people that work here, and to have that belief in me and is awesome. And it's appreciated, and it doesn't go unnoticed by me, and it's definitely a motivator.
And something that I think it was Walt had said that in his press conference was about how through all of this that you haven't lost your passion for racing. You're still as dedicated as ever, passionate as ever. For you, what has it been like these last couple years, just learning to race at the cup level, go through these ups and downs and not lose that fire? Know that you have the talent, you have the people, but kind of grow along the way. What has that been like for you?
And that's exactly what it is. It's growth. It's you're trying to find the next level yourself. I mean, you move up from the Xfinity Series to Cup Series. You see it in other professional sports. With I watch a lot of football. You see it with college players going into the NFL. That performance can or cannot translate depending on how you adapt. And the Cup Series field is extremely talented, and to be able to separate yourself, in today's day and age, is more of a challenge probably than ever, in some ways, but otherwise, I want to be on that level. Like, I want that challenge. I don't want to just be satisfied with what I've done. It's how do you take advantage of the opportunity that you have? Because that's all that really comes down to. So whether if that's defining my process throughout the week, or with my guys, or what I look at, or what's important, or how do I utilize my teammates as resources, all of the things that make Cup Series racing different than what I've done in the Xfinity and the Truck Series and any other type of racing that I've done. How do I adapt to that with the things that not necessarily I'm comfortable with, because I think you have to find yourself uncomfortable. You have to have difficult conversations with the people that matter. But how do you utilize performance? Because if you're just reinventing the wheel to reinvent the wheel because you don't feel good about how things are going, you got to do everything with a purpose. And I feel like I've turned over a lot of stones to get to where we're seeing some progress with me and my group. And that's what it takes, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to Deandra. Good morning.
Good morning, Austin, and thank you for taking the time. I have a two-part question, which is about your work in the television commentary booth. So the first part is, what, if anything, do you learn being in the booth that you are not learning being on the track? And the second one is, whose idea was the bow tie?
All right. So as far as on the broadcast booth side, I certainly enjoy it. I would say like being in the booth has definitely been my favorite role that I've been assigned. Like I've done the pit crew, or pit road, I've done the the studio, and I've done the booth. And the booth is definitely the most fun because it's like live sports. Like that's how you have to consume sports, is live. That's like half the reason I feel like we have live television still, is because of live sports, and to be part of that live action and talk about things as they're happening is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy that, and I enjoy watching that. So that part for me has been fun. I've watched a lot of races from the spotter stand, and I would say that's a pretty similar experience for me as far as like what I can see. So I do find that very valuable. And as far as the bow tie, I have always not cared about being a little bit different, but I probably got a bow tie before this, but it definitely solidified the deal when I was in band class. I played the tuba, and a regular tie was going to get in the way of like playing all the notes and like picking the thing up and down and like not pulling on your neck. So I wore a bow tie, and really ever since, that's pretty much all I've ever owned. So it's funny because it's just kind of just enough out of the norm that literally everybody picks up on it and asks me about it, and it's definitely become a thing. I guess it's fun. It's fun to do something a little different.
It's a good look with the glasses. It's very erudite. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, lesson on how to tie a bow tie. Personally, I don't know how to tie an actual bow tie, because
It's pretty easy, Dan. It's like tying a shoe. It's actually easier than regular tie, I promise you.
Well, maybe one day I'll come to the coach next formal event I have and give me a lesson.
We'll figure it out.
All right, great. Let's go to Dustin Long. Hey, Dusty.
Hey, thanks. Couple things. Hey, Austin, you talked about on Sunday after the race about, it's not good enough just to be top 10 at Penske. And look, I understand, to be an athlete in your position, you have to have a singular focus and a singular drive. But I'm curious, from the mental aspect of it, how do you prevent that from being destructive to where that is so all consuming? And again, I understand it has to be to some degree, but how something like that, what you've gone through, doesn't tear you down, break you down, or maybe it did and you learned from it.
Yeah, I think it depends on the day, whether if it's breaking me down or not. Yeah, it's certainly just, it's how do you react and adapt to adversity? I mean, I think that's, I think that's what really high performance is all about. And whether if adversity is at a really low, or someone's adversity could be at my high, and trying to define that and move that bar up, I think is what it's all about. I've always felt like I've been a pretty mentally strong person. I've had to learn a lot in a short amount of time in a lot of different situations in race cars, and I worked with a ton of different people. I feel like I'm a pretty adaptable person in a lot of ways, but it's what it takes. Past that, I don't think there's a right or wrong way of how to do it. Everybody's experiences are different. But how bad do you want it? It's really all it boils down to, and how important is it to you? And I think I alluded to on Sunday that this is by far the most important thing that I have going on, and it's how I want it.
And I want to check, and I was trying to go back through your history, and obviously, last year not winning, but I was thinking the only other time you had won since 2015 would have been your 2018 Xfinity rookie season. And I couldn't find if you ran any other race or anything else then. So if that's the case, you only had 2 years in about an 8, 9, 10-year period where you didn't win. I know you were talking a little bit about that. What is the adjustment in terms of not winning? And I don't know if it's resetting goals or just understanding where you are and looking at that way, because obviously there's so much focus on winning, but there's so many other things that can be accomplished each weekend.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point that made 2023 pretty difficult for me, is just numbers on the board. Like, that is, to your point, that is the first year since 2011 that I haven't won a race. It's a long time. That's a really long time. and whether it's just one or two a year or multiple or whatever it is, I actually commission artwork every year to send out to all my supporters, family, and friends. It's kind of a collage of all the race cars I drove. I started it back in 2015 when I was racing in IMSA and rallycross and stock cars, and like kind of just to illustrate literally the different experiences I got to do throughout the year. And usually the centerpiece of this artwork is the most prominent race win I have. And last year, I called my guy Steve. I'm like, dude, I don't even know what to do. Like, this is a tradition. Like, everybody expects this every year. Like, and I want to do this, and I want to have these to like line them up, throughout my career. But like, I don't even know what to put at the center of this. Like, I did the Bristol dirt race because it was just different and it was going away. So we put a dirt NASCAR Cup car because that's as weird as last year felt for me, and that's just what we did because I ran well in the heat race. that's all I got. So from a goal setting standpoint, look, I mean, I didn't expect to get into the Cup Series and go out here and win a ton of races right away against some guys that have been doing this for over a decade. I'm definitely a realistic person, but I definitely expect myself and the level in which I prepare for these races. I'd say the hardest thing over the last handful of years for me to do, and it's it's like a weekly self-check for me, because there's a different way to prepare for a race, to prepare if you're going to run from 10th to 25th versus 10th to 1st. Whether if that's studying restarts, how different drivers drive, what decisions to make in traffic, those are the types of things that my preparation it's been a much wider spectrum of preparation because the racing is so different throughout the Cup Series field. I mean, this past weekend, there were cars that raced that race that I never saw the entire weekend. Usually I see the entire field at some point or the other. And it's been difficult for me going into race weekends to convince myself that I need to prepare to watch every single restart of how to win every single restart in every scenario, the same way that I would going into every single Xfinity Series race. Going into the race knowing that, I'm probably not – there's a chance I'm not going to be racing for the win here, but I need to be ready for that opportunity. And there are weeks where you're finishing 25th 3 weeks in a row where it's, hard to sit here and realistically think that you'll just go in there and need to use this information. But some of it's just about not being lazy. But that's how you have to challenge yourself, because it's kind of depressing watching some of those things, thinking that you're not going to have to use it. But it's necessary, and that's the mindset that I've forced myself to have is be prepared for those moments. And this weekend is honestly proof of that process for not just me, but my team. That's what I feel like I project onto my race team is to be prepared for that, know that we have that opportunity. And it's good to be surrounded by, whether if that's, two championship, teams, right next door to our setup plate, or even an IndyCar program or an IMSA program. Like, we have enough greatness surrounding us to know that we have all those ingredients. Obviously it hasn't been the best year for our Cup program as a whole, but you have to be ready for those opportunities and do what is necessary to take advantage of that.
I want to ask you one other thing, and I did see. Thanks, Dan. I saw that the artwork that you had done. Dan showed that earlier from this past season. But as you talk about, maybe think about in terms of basketball, and we hear about like gym rats, sons of coaches who grow up around the game and have like a different understanding or different motivation. And do you, as you talk about, studying restart, studying different things, and as opposed to if you're going to be a winning driver, even if you're running 25th. And I'm just wondering if it's as much the osmosis or just being around Team Penske and the drivers, and kind of maybe this is kind of your racing version of being a gym rat, of what you kind of picked up, even if you didn't necessarily know it, but seeing what these drivers have done when you were younger. Do you get that sense, or do you feel like how much that has helped guide it? Because certainly, like I said, I think the mental aspect is very interesting, because like I think it could easily tear a young driver down And you've been able to kind of, at least at this point, seem like overcome that or survive in that sense. And I'm just wondering how much of that Penske background and being around all the success through the years is maybe kind of filtered down in a way.
I mean, I certainly think that my expectation for myself and the people around me, the people that I work with, is absolutely that. I ask a lot of the people that I work with, and I ask a lot of myself, and I do feel like it's, I don't know anything different when it comes to performance and how to get the most, out of every opportunity, other than what I know, and what I know is what happens at Team Penske. No other way around it, really. I don't have any exposure to anything else, and that mentality has helped me in other forms of racing outside of racing for Team Penske. But it is absolutely the mentality that and the culture that flows through the shop. So from that perspective, yes, absolutely, I would. There's no way I can disagree with you. But at the same time, talking about, I mean, everyone has bad days, but I definitely don't want to define myself as a 25th place driver, as I talk about all this, because I know that's what I'm not. And I know that I bring a lot more to the table with that. But, those weeks are definitely the toughest, but because, I know that with what I do and what we do as a team. So it's difficult to try and overcome that some days.
Thank you for explaining that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, Austin, I know you've got to run here at 10. I want to try to squeeze in Trey Downey real quick because I'm sure he's probably got a question about next week. So Trey, go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll have to let Austin go.
Hey, Austin, just want to look ahead to the month upcoming. Have you seen the pictures of the repave in 3 and 4 in Iowa? And if so, how do you think that'll change the racing there?
I actually haven't seen the photos of the repave in Iowa. I know they're going to pave over the patchwork in 3 and 4 that's been there for a little while. So obviously, new pavement's gonna have grip, and you're gonna have to run through it. I think it all just kind of depends on how wide it is. Even at North Wilkesboro last year, that's an extreme example with an extremely old surface. You would put your tire literally on the freshest piece of asphalt, and that would be the racing line, no matter what track shape or geometry would tell you is the correct racing line. It's where the grip is. So I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a favored spot on the racetrack, just due to that. But otherwise, I think we're all really excited about going to Iowa.
Thank you.
All right, Austin, I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's busy. You got a lot going on there today. The trophy looks good behind you. The champagne bottle looks good. I don't know if it's been, if it's still full. You've still got some celebrating to do with that, but it looks good. And I wish you the best of luck this weekend in Sonoma.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate y'all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but I'll get a transcript out of this. And hope if you're traveling out to Sonoma, travel safely. We'll see you out there, and we'll be back again next week with someone else. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.
See you.
All right, Greg.
Bye.
Bye-bye.